3 killer parents. Of all the crimes humans commit against one another, perhaps none is more unimaginable than a parent killing their own child. Northeastern England's Durham County is where Marianne was raised. She reportedly left home at the age of 16 to work as a nurse, but came back 3 years later and started a dressmaking business. She married William Mowbray in 1852, and during the following 10 years or so, they had 8 to 9 kids together. Many aspects of Mary Ann's life were subject to debate due to a lack of supporting documents, such as birth and death certificates. After making several moves, the family eventually made its home in Hendon, Durham County, around 1856. The other children had passed away from gastric fever, a common sickness with symptoms similar to arsenic poisoning. At some point, William took out a life insurance policy that covered both him and her 3 surviving children. William also perished from gastroenteritis in 1864, as did 2 more kids shortly afterward. After receiving the insurance money, Marianne gave her daughter's custody to her mother. After that, Marianne worked as a hospital nurse in neighboring Sunderland, where she later married a patient named George Ward in 1865. He passed away the following year, though, and Marianne is said to have gotten money from another insurance plan. The widower, James Robinson, hired her as a housekeeper. One of his 5 children reportedly passed away from stomach illness only a few weeks after she arrived in 1866. The mother, Marianne, visited the next year, passed away about a week after she got back. Then, Marianne and the child she had with Mowbray moved in with the Robinson family. However, the girl and 2 of Robinson's kids passed away in April 1867. Robinson and Marianne were married in August. Of their 2 children, only one lived to adulthood. Robinson became skeptical of Marianne's persistent requests that he purchase a life insurance policy after learning she had been stealing from him in 1869. She quickly left or was expelled and experienced homelessness for a while. However, Marianne met another widower in 1870 named Frederick Cotton, who happened to be a friend's brother. Both Cotton's sister and his youngest child passed away that year, although she was still married to Robinson. Marianne and Cotton were wed in September 1870, and she later gave birth to a son. By year's end, Cotton and 2 more kids had passed away. Once more, Marianne supposedly received an insurance claim. Around this time, she began a relationship with a former boyfriend named Joseph Nattrass, but she later had a child with John Quick Manning. When Nattrass passed away in 1872, Marianne received his sparse possessions. She allegedly told a local authority that Charles Edward Cotton, her stepson, who was 7 years old, prevented her from marrying Quick Manning, but she said, "I won't be troubled for long." The official called the police when the youngster passed away. Eventually, a test indicated that he had arsenic in his stomach. Authorities also unearthed the bodies of Nattrass and the other 2 Cotton kids, and it was discovered that they had all been arsenic poisoned. A girl who was purportedly Marianne's 13th child was born in January 1873 while she was incarcerated. This child and another offspring were the only ones to survive their mother. Marianne was accused of killing Charles Edward Cotton. 2 months later, Marianne's case came to trial. The defense suggested that the deceased had breathed arsenic dust from wallpaper dye, which is a plausible theory, considering that arsenic was once present in many ordinary home objects. However, the prosecution's evidence, particularly the other deaths linked to the arsenic, proved overwhelming, and she was found guilty and given the death penalty. Marianne was hanged in a botched execution on March 24th, 1873. The family's pet duck was the first victim. It was slain in an effort to purge the home from evil. In order to clear the property, Raina Thaiday had already been on a cleaning binge for a week, scrubbing the ceilings of her current's home and throwing things outside into the garden. But she made the decision to kill her children in order to save them when she heard a dove's call, which she mistook for a sign from God. The Mental Health Court of Queensland determined last month that Raina Mersane in Thaiday was not of sound mind when she fatally stabbed 7 of her children and niece in her house on December 19, 2014. The verdict was not made public until Thursday. She believed that what she was doing was the best thing she could do for her kids at the moment. When excluding the mother from trial and ordering her to receive mental health therapy, Justice Jean Dalton stated that she was attempting to save them. The 40-year-old's journey into schizophrenia at its very depths, which was likely exacerbated by years of excess cannabis usage, was detailed in court along the way. It culminated in her being in a psychotic state when she killed 8 children under the age of 15. The court heard that a week prior to the murder, Louis Waria, her son, who was 20 at the time, discovered Mrs. Thaiday to be upset and grave, spending a lot of time lecturing him about God. Justice Dalton stated that her effort to cleanse her home went much beyond a normal spring cleaning. The entire household furnishings were removed and placed outside in the garden, the woman claimed. The interior of the home was cleaned in an unorthodox manner, including the walls and ceilings, and many of Miss Thayday's possessions, many of them highly valuable, were thrown away. The evening of December 18th saw a further decline in conditions. She had asked her oldest daughter, niece, and godchild to return by 10 p.m., but they had gone shopping instead. At the time of the murder, Raina Mersane Thaiday was psychotic. Miss Thaiday traversed the neighborhood, preaching to neighbors about their drug and alcohol addictions. She slept outside on a mattress that was brought out during cleaning because she was agitated. The things neighbors overheard Miss Thaiday saying to herself or on the phone as she went up and down the street were, in Justice Dalton's words, clearly psychotic in hindsight. The judge said she was saying things like, "I am the chosen one. I have the ability to curse and kill people. My kids were injured first. Then you were hurt. I stab my babies first before you do. I kill them if you kill them." On December 19th, Mr. Warrior got home at 11:40 a.m. to see his mother lying on the front veranda with about 35 self-inflicted stab wounds, including one that pierced her lung. His cousin and siblings were also deceased. 6 doctors who had thoroughly examined his mother's mental health gave their opinions in a courtroom at Brisbane's Queen Elizabeth II Courts of Law nearly 2.5 years later. Mr. Warrior was present when the police and paramedics came. The court heard Mrs. Thaiday instantly acknowledge that she had killed the kids there. She told psychiatrists that Papa God had been speaking to her, portraying herself as the anointed one who was in danger from demons and needing to purge her Karen's house of an evil presence. Dr. Angela Voyoda, a psychiatrist, began treating Mrs. Thaiday on Christmas Eve 2014. 5 days after the mass murder. She and the other 3 psychiatrists who testified at the hearing all agreed that she was mentally ill when the offenses were committed. Mrs. Thaiday had no prior history of mental illness or interaction with mental health services, and she had suicidal thoughts in 2011 and similar ones 2 weeks before the 2014 murders. Cannabis use was frequently associated with the emergence of schizophrenia in people who were predisposed to the illness. Prior to the massacre, Miss Thaiday quit using 10 to 20 cones per day, which prompted some doctors to wonder if her psychosis was a sort of withdrawal. Doctors Donald Grant and Jane Phillips concurred that it was more likely that the sickness started to affect her while she was still smoking cannabis, leading to the development of religious delusions. Justice Dalton stated that the evidence was all very convincing that Mrs. Thaiday was psychotic at the time of the murder, and granted a forensic order for continued mental health care. An insidious couple who killed their 2 teenage sons and attempted to kill their other 4 children has been sentenced to life in prison. In an effort to avoid having their 6 children placed in foster care, Sarah Barras, 35, and her partner, Brandon Matchen, 39, who is also her half-brother, intended to kill them all. On Tuesday, they were both given life sentences with a 35-year minimum. The 2 strangled Tristan and Blake Barras, 13 and 14 years old respectively, at a residence in Sheffield's Shire Green neighborhood on May 24th. South Yorkshire police have released a picture of Tristan and Blake Barras, who are 13 and 14. The 4 oldest terrified children of Barras and Matchen were given ADHD medication against their will before the murders, according to a testimony in court. "I gave them life," said Barras, after the medications failed to function. She searched online for more ways to kill her children, such as drowning, suffocation, and strangulation, and declared, "I can take it away." According to testimony given in court, Barras then choked Tristan with the string of her own nightgown, and Matchen choked Blake with his hands. The 2 also attempted to drown one of the smaller kids in the bath in order to kill them. Barras and Matchen both admitted to committing 2 murders, plotting the deaths of 6 children, and committing 5 attempted murders. Barras was told during the sentence process by, "You considered that your love for them and fear for being apart from them entitled you to take their lives as well as your own." Mr. Justice Goss said Matchen was Barras's half-brother since they shared a mother, according to the prosecution, Kamameli, before Sheffield Crown Court, but the 2 had a sexual relationship. The kids were raised by their mother, Sarah Barras, alone. Prior to the events of 2019, the household of Sarah Barras appeared to the outer world to be that of a devoted single mother of 6 children, who received strong support from her brother, Brandon Matchen. In actuality, Brandon Matchen was the father of all 6 children and had a sexual relationship with his half-sister, Sarah Barras, which was unknown to anyone save the defendants. The kids thought their father had perished in the Second World War and even told police officials on the spot that the defendants split the 4 oldest children among the tablets they collected from the area around Barras' house on May 23rd in anticipation of their deaths. The youngest had an illness bug, according to messages Barras sent overnight and social media posts she made. The two placed bin bags over their heads to ensure their certain death after strangling the lads. The mother brought the remaining children, all younger than 13 years old, to the bedroom and called the police after the killings and attempted murder of the younger child. When the police arrived, Sarah Barras misled the authorities by claiming that her 2 other children were with her neighbors. However, one of the kids signaled to the officer that the kids were actually dead, and the officer moved his palm across his throat, and the 2 young survivors were both under 3 years old. The court was informed that Barras had texted a friend to remark, "I've thought of every possible solution to this mess," after asking the local government for assistance with the kids. "I love my kids too much to kill them. Mass murder. Placing them all in foster care. Checking into the neighborhood, not home. They cannot be placed in foster care for the same reason." Brian Cox QC, who was representing Barras, acknowledged that her crimes were nothing but evil, but added that she had been profoundly damaged by her childhood. According to testimony given in court, Barras was neglected as a child and subjected to physical, emotional, and sexual abuse before being placed in foster care. So what do you think could drive a parent to kill the kids? Is a mental illness pure evil, or just evidence that some parents should not be allowed to have or be around children at all? Share your thoughts on these 3 inexplicably evil cases in the comments section below, and subscribe for more stories.